Order the regular meeting of the Eastpointe City Council on Tuesday, March 15th, 2016. Please rise for the invocation given by Councilwoman Sarah Lucido. Remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Dear God, as we near this most special time of the year, let us all take a moment to reflect upon our own lives. While we journey through this life, we have the opportunity to give or to take, to destroy or build, to help others or ignore them. We continue to be thankful for the many blessings you have given us, and let us be ever mindful that the decisions we make not only affect the people of today, but future generations as well. Please take us down the path that leads us to the betterment of those who follow us. It is in your name we pray. Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have no presentation on the Rapid Transit Authority that was scheduled previously. Please call the roll.
Councilperson DeMonico?
Here.
Councilperson Lucido?
Here.
Councilperson Kleinfeld?
Here.
Councilperson Marion?
Here.
And Mayor Pixley.
Here. We'll open up a first hearing of the public. Does anyone wish to be heard tonight? Does anyone wish to be heard?
Madam Mayor and Council, thank you, Cardi, for this draft, but I don't know what it means. I asked last time for a breakdown. If this is a breakdown I get, then can you explain it to me? I'd appreciate that. And I guess just before we come here, I stopped down at Spindler Park just to take a quick look at that parking lot. And I tell you what, it exploded. I don't know if they're going to you have to go in there and undercut the whole thing or what they're going to do, but if they think putting that first course on it last fall was a good idea, I think it was a real bad mistake, because they're going to have to go in there, they're going to have to go ahead and mill it, they're going to have to take the high spots off of it, and it's going to cost somebody a whole lot of money, and I'm going to be right there when they do it. Because I just watched the one over at the rec center, we just come from it last week, and Steve would tell you the same thing, it already exploded. I mean, this work in doing things at the wrong time of the year, and just wasting time and material and everything is stupid. I don't know who makes the decisions. I know it's not me. But, I mean, it's somebody else, and whoever told them, go ahead and tear it out and redo it, to put the first course on and they'll catch it in the spring. Well, if they want to waste the money, because if I find out it's costing the taxpayers any, I'm going to be on somebody real bad. And I sort of met with the schools, and I seen the superintendent and rest of the stuff, and I was looking at some of our maintenance problems, and they're working on them, and which I think they're doing a pretty good job, but I tell you, it's still terrible. When I went and voted, we went to vote in Bellevue, it was embarrassing to me to see the front of our school. And I mentioned this before too, and I plead with the city council and the rest of the stuff too. We've got people, we want people to come in this city, but without maintenance and without us preparing ourselves in doing what we have to do, we're fighting a losing battle. And I don't know the real reason why transportation didn't show up, but according to the mayor, we've only got one more meeting. And if anybody on the board, the council, or the city can prove to the residents or us that this is going to benefit our city in any way whatsoever, I'll think about it. But other than that, we can't even maintain what we've got. And they want to give us, and especially put a millage on come November for it? I don't think so. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Creech. Does anyone else wish to be heard at this time? Sir, please come forward and state your name.
Kent Gallagher. I live at 16534 Topher. And I don't really have a complaint, but I just want to address the vacant property next to me. And this has been ongoing last 3 to 5 years. I've spoken with don't know, the rental owner guy, whatever, and I've spoken with people in the city. The property problem is he's got a privacy fence. So anytime there's a 30-mile-an-hour wind, it falls into my driveway. And I've learned to kind of watch the news and not park up near my garage. The first time I called the city, it was kind of like pulling teeth. They were, we got to be able to see it from the road, yada, yada. To me, it seemed like it was kind of more of, they were telling me why they couldn't take care of it. I finally got someone out there. I don't know if they ticketed them or whatever, but the fence was repaired. The problem is the guy repairs it with finishing nails. He screws through the slats. He doesn't repair it properly. So what I did is I got a couple series of pictures. If anybody's interested, I can give them to you later or whatever. But it just kind of shows the rotted posts and the improper nailing techniques this guy uses. And then the fence blows down. I push it back on his property. He comes up, nails it, et cetera, and it blows down again. So I've kind of learned to live with it. But this time, everything, the posts are all rotted out, everything's down. So I was just wondering what the procedure is. Can we apply some kind of building codes to this guy? Another problem is I noticed he's got the orange stickers up on the house now for not paying his taxes. So, that's another problem. I mean, for 3 years, he hasn't been paying his taxes. He's been blowing off the building department. The guy lets his grass grow, 12 inches high and then blows it all against my house, and he thinks it's funny. But I don't know, like in other cities, if this thing goes into foreclosure, I've offered to buy the property from him for 3 years. But he just wants such a ridiculous amount of money, it's crazy. So I know in some cities, if it goes into foreclosure, they let someone next to the property have first crack at it. So if Eastpointe does that, I don't want to rent it out. I just want some peace and quiet, and I'll maintain it like I maintain my property. So, and then the last.
Mr. Gallagher,
Yeah.
you have 3 minutes to
Okay,
speak.
Did I use
So,
it all?
I think you've used maybe all but
Okay.
5 minutes, seconds. But what I'd like to ask you to do is to take your information and your pictures over to Linda Lintz over here on this side.
Okay.
In particular, your name, your address, and your phone number, so we can follow up on it.
I did want to say the guys doing the water and the gas on Topher, they're like precision construction guys.
Thank you. Does anyone else wish to be heard? Mr. Curley?
Harvey Curley, City of Eastpointe. I brought this sign tonight about the cruise, but I forgot that the citizens aren't allowed to see the citizens that come here to give their opinions about something. But simply, this is made in 1999. The first cruise was June 19th, 1999. And if you want to see this, folks, I'll have it in my front porch tomorrow. You can come by and look at it. But just real briefly, a really quick history. In 1999, Carol Corey and the late Jim Wynn came to the council. I was mayor at the time. They said, we got this great idea. We want to do this thing called Cruise and Gratiot. And we said, duh, what? And they explained it. And so it started June 19th, 1999. The first 2 years or 3 years, we want to thank the Chamber of Commerce. They stepped forward and says, look, we'll be responsible for it. So, and then after the third year, they formed the committee, and we moved forward. So this year it's Saturday, June 18th. Always it's the Saturday before Father's Day. And all of you will be getting a personal invitation to the VIP parade. You'll all be in a convertible. If you want to bring your significant other, we'll make sure that we get a convertible big enough that the two of you can ride. Sometimes there's a small convertible. They said only one person. So if there's only one person that wants to ride, we'll put you in that. If the rest of you bring your significant other, we'll put you in a larger convertible. But things are going well. We're working very hard on it. And I would like to say that Lois Klein, who has been involved with the cruise for a long time, is not feeling too well. So I would just ask that all of you guys and the people in the audience and people watching on television, just say a prayer for Lois Klein, that she gets well real soon. So if there's any questions, you can give us a call, But we would like to see all of you on that day. I hope that we're letting you know well in advance to come on out and have a great time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Curley. Does anyone else wish
I
to?
could come up there and could go like this. Or you could open the home of the hearing the public open on television.
Does anyone else wish to be heard? Does anyone else wish to be heard at this time? Seeing none, the first hearing of the public is closed. Move on to approval of the minutes from the meeting of the regular meeting of March 1st, 2016. Do we have a motion?
Madam Mayor, I'll motion to approve the regular meeting minutes of March 1st, 2016.
Support.
Move and support. Any corrections? Please call the roll.
Councilperson DeMonico?
Yes.
Councilperson Marion?
Yes.
Councilperson Lucido?
Yes.
Councilperson Kleinfeld?
Yes.
Mayor Pixley?
Yes. We have no scheduled hearings tonight. We only have one item under unfinished business, and that relates to the review and discussion of our fiscal management plan. Mr. Duchesne?
Mayor Pixley, I'd like to exchange documents. The one in the backup would be replaced by the one I handed out today. And concurrently with that, I'd like to suggest we examine this item on June 7th, giving people time to note. I put in the legal method of strikeout and changes highlighted. There have been a number of things that I'm happy to say we no longer need in the fiscal report management plan, and give everybody a chance to look at that and not take any more action on that tonight till June 7th, if I could.
Anyone from council have any objection to doing that?
Got a couple quick suggestions, though, that, a couple things that I've stumbled across on here. On page 8, it, on reference of 2.07, it references the chief financial officer. And we don't have one.
Yes, we do. He's the finance director. It's
Finance
the term,
director.
yeah, and it's like I'm the CAO, chief administrative officer,
I know
chief
referencing
financial officer.
is in the
and, yeah.
city charter as the
Yeah,
finance director, but.
Yeah,
not
that's
as-
the CFO by statute and other things, and by policy, though, so.
You'd like just to be consistent, you're saying then, John?
Pardon?
For it to be consistent then?
It seemed like the terminology kind of is a little, we're changing hats in here, and it's kind of like it's the same person here, so, I don't know.
Yeah, the policy, obviously, over time, indicates to other parties which may not be familiar with the working titles within each organization, such as like, when I present this to Standard & Poor's, rating agencies, they just simply know by designation in an organization who the chief financial officer is, instead of like, whether you call him controller or comptroller or finance director. So as an industry term, it's a little more
So
uniform.
he would also be the CIO, Chief Investment Officer, too?
He would be the chief investment officer also, and a couple of EIEIOs that follow.
Okay, so we
yeah.
get him a three-cornered hat, huh?
Yeah.
So there is nothing in the proposed thing that would interfere with our budget preparation or the capital improvement plan?
No,
They're
nothing would.
basically the same.
Yeah, nothing would, nothing would interfere, and as I present the recommended budget, you'll be talking about some of these very areas, and of course, these policies get incorporated in the budget. So what we basically, and I guess for a short discussion on it, just as you look into it, you'll see a part that's stricken is the emergency financial plan, which we don't need anymore, thankfully, and hopefully not for 20 years. And the other changes, you'll see we had some scale back to the reserves that we planned because of the last time these were adopted, it looked like we couldn't meet those objectives of the reserves in place for budget stabilization and emergencies. And thankfully now we can. So those are a couple of the other changes. The rest of them are pretty much still industry standard and leading edge kind of policies. So for a little insight discussion.
You're recommending bring it back up June 7th? Why not next meeting?
Well, just to give people more of an opportunity to look it over, and by that time, you'll have the budget, and June 7th is the public hearing on the budget, so I thought that might be just adequate time to review and discuss.
Okay. Yeah, I think a lot of my items then were, that I was going to bring up are fixed now with the
This
The
version
changes,
is probably a little more useful that way.
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, then, yeah, Madam Mayor, I'll motion to table the review and discuss the fiscal management plan until our June 7 meeting.
Support.
Move and support. Any other comments? Please call the roll.
Councilperson Monaco?
Yes.
Councilperson Marion?
Yes.
Councilperson Lucido?
Yes.
Councilperson Kleinfeld?
Yes.
Mayor Pixley?
Yes. And with that, we'll move to reports from administration and go first to our city manager. Mr. Duchesne, do you have anything in addition?
The only thing in addition I would mention is we're very close in the taxpayers for the Michigan Constitution to make the filing, and we've got verbal commitments and over $10,000 of support. If there's no objections, I would put down Eastpointe as a supporter of the initiative, and since we started it, probably that's a good thing moving forward. We had, I know the mayor's been at a couple meetings, we've discussed it in macro county-wide, and I don't think there's many people who have a reservation about it. It certainly, again, deals with the three elements that we're concerned with, is the inappropriate application of the calculations under Headley regarding state level of spending overall. With the passage of Proposal A, they did not adjust accordingly to that statute. And our team, which has gained another participant from Wayne, we have a Wayne Law Team, we have the Sugar Law Center, and now we've added the Political Science Department at Wayne, helping us with the analysis. That part is especially constraining to local governments and been an issue from day one, as a number of our task force have concluded. Number two, it is not speaking about whether charter schools should exist, but we have found, and with an AG's opinion to support it, that charter schools are not local units of government. And this is important because the calculation under Headley is that they're part of local government, and the calculation the state is using is treating them as if they're a local unit of government. Well, that would, at least this year alone, make a change of $1 billion in state support being credited as state support for local governments. And that obviously has a tremendous impact. And then third, which is a little more minor but somewhat surprising, is the state of Michigan calculates the trunk line reimbursements for work we do for them under contract as payments to local governments in support. That is a very clear false impression given by the state, and it's inappropriate. It is not local government support. We're simply doing their work and they're paying us. So those are still the three principles that go into it. People have asked me, a number have said, well, what do you hope to achieve? And I'd simply say correctness. It has to be correct. It changes the whole dynamic. If people are allowed to ignore the Michigan Constitution in funding municipalities and local units of government and operations, then obviously nothing stops them from doing additional harm. And in our calculations, one of the examples, and everybody's talking about the issue that is Flint today and what has happened in Flint with water, and that, and truthfully, we look back, and one of the reviews of this is if the city of Flint had been receiving right along its share of revenue sharing, you have a difference of almost $2 million they would have had annually to spend that they otherwise were short, which may have led to this. And I think, not to make the long version of this, I know Mayor has heard it about 3 times, my long version.
This week.
This week. To make it short is that, again, the whole idea is local governments deliver services. The people of Michigan voted in a constitutional amendment to ensure that this takes place. The state had agreed in 1989 in an Oakland County case that it must make this contribution at that level of spending its dollars, which is our dollars, being returned on local government at 48.9%. And if you subtract the charters and you subtract what they've withheld from revenue sharing, they're more in the 33% range of spending on local governments. I don't think your job would be harmed, and it would not be more difficult with an additional $1.5 million this year to spend. that your people in sales and income tax have paid the state of Michigan. So what we hope to is the attention of those, in Lansing to understand that they have a constitutional problem. What that means, I don't know. It'll probably, the Oakland County case in '89 was settled with virtually a consent judgment as directed by the Court of Appeals. We certainly can't do worse. And I guess I've heard that from some of our municipal colleagues who are worried the state will mistreat us with a lawsuit. And I ask, how does it feel to be treated well? Because I don't know why I don't have anything to compare it to.
So
So,
I have two things. Are you asking the council for a resolution or just verbal support?
well, I would suggest, depending on the level of comfort, we're only putting $1,500 individually into the efforts. But certainly if council would support the effort, and at the same time, if you wish to allocate $1,500 to the effort, we certainly think that maybe Eastpointe should be the leader in that. Mr. Blum is acting as the treasurer of the group of municipalities, and if we put our money in first, I would kind of think that's symbolic and lead the way. The 10-5 that's verbally committed over the next couple of weeks will come in, but I would kind of like to say we were the first ones at the table to do it. That's not important, obviously, the money is what counts, but support of the effort is really appreciated.
So we would need some type of a motion.
If council's ready to do so, I
And
would
the
be
amount
good.
that you're asking is 15?
$1,500.
So council, what's your view? It worked pretty well when we approved support for the public,
The lighting.
the lighting.
Yes, very well worked
And,
out, similar to
That's
that.
really created a great deal, but I think the city stands to gain a great deal more than the $1,500 that we would put in.
I certainly agree.
I mean, Randy could give us an estimation of how much revenue sharing we're still owed if we had been at the 48.9. And I'm not going to put you on the spot, but it's a huge percentage.
Yeah, based on how much it has dropped over the years, I mean, if you did it cumulatively, I would take a rough shot at about $3.5 to $4 million, maybe even more than that. But I would comfortably say that if they got it right, we'd get probably an extra $250,000 per year.
So a $1,500 expenditure is really just a drop in the bucket compared to
Correct.
what we could
For what
possibly.
we should be getting going forward.
Was there a name to this group we are supporting, or what,
Taxpayers for the
we-
Michigan Constitution.
taxpayers for the Michigan Constitution? All right, well, I'll motion to support our involvement in taxpayers for the Michigan Constitution, and allocate $1,500 towards our membership in this group.
Support.
Move support. Please call the roll.
Councilperson DeMonico?
Yes.
Councilperson Marion?
Yes.
Councilperson Kleinfeld?
Yes.
Mayor Pixley?
Yes.
Councilperson Lucido?
Yes.
Thank you.
And I'm sure, council, you've all seen or read the review that comes out from Michigan Municipal League. There's quite an article on revenue sharing today. Anything else?
That is all, Madam Mayor, thank you.
Anything for the city manager?
Yes, one thing I wanted to talk about briefly that we originally had on the agenda, the Regional Transit Authority. Just wanted to just briefly go over a couple points. I know a lot of folks have a lot of questions, and there, of course, are still questions that are not answered, but there are a lot of questions that we can answer. And I did just want to take a minute and go over that, and Mr. Duchesne, if you wanted to jump in on anything, but there were, we just discussed it, for a few minutes, but just wanted to clear up a few items that had been brought up, and then,
Excuse me, did you want to keep this for your comments later? I mean, because this is the city manager's report.
right, but we did also have it on the agenda at the beginning, and then we skipped over it, so I wanted to make sure before, in case anyone wanted to talk about it at the next hearing of the public either, that we go over anything.
I can interact if Mr. DeMonico wants to raise a couple points, and we can have an interaction if you wish, Madam
Because
Mayor.
really, this is his place.
Right, I know, we talked about it at his place last time, and there were a few items that I believe, I don't know how, could be cleared up from them, because I think a couple things were not 100% accurate. I did not have the details at the time. And of course, so RTA wants to come back after they've had these additional public sections, but I just wanted to get more of the facts out there. I think it's hard to reach all the folks in all 4 communities and get this out to all the residents. We have a lot of residents here. So just one thing was about the amount of time that it would take to go from here to downtown or back. About the ride time, we talked about that briefly last time. If you look up you go on Smart's website right now, it'll be 1 hour and 9 minutes to get from here to downtown. And it's like 122 bus stops is what the Smart site said when I did it. I think it's either getting picked up at 8 Mile, going down. Go on Smart's website and look it up, and it'll take 1 hour and 9 minutes on the bus. So what RTA says, it'll be approximately 25 minutes. Now, this is an answer right from the CEO, Michael Ford, of the RTA. It'll be approximately 25 minutes then on the bus. Now, what was brought up last time was that it would save 3 minutes, which is accurate if you're comparing vehicles to bus, which it wasn't expected to be a huge increase in savings vehicle to bus, but the current bus to what this rapid transit is a huge increase in savings of time. It'll be hour round trip or things for Eastpointe residents, but it'll be 3 to 5 minutes compared to driving, because it's pretty similar route as to a vehicle. And then also where the buses will be is not set in stone yet. And we had the impression a couple meetings ago that it was set in stone, and it was talked about going directly through the median, which of course we brought up other issues where, we of course have lines, electric lines, and the sewer underneath the middle, or not electric lines, the phone lines and the sewer underneath the middle of the median. But it looks like they haven't set in stone yet, but it's going to be the outside of the median, is what Mr. Ford here said at the RTA. And then also the park and ride they discussed, according to Mr. Ford here, they were looking at 8 Mile and Gratiot, not 9 Mile and Gratiot, because of course we have a lot more room at 8 Mile and Gratiot with the huge underutilized parking lot on the northeast corner. Of course, our 9 in Gratiot's not as open, there's not open space that's unutilized like at that parking lot at 8 in Gratiot. So they're looking at doing a park and ride so that you could, drive from a different part of the city, leave your car there, and then head downtown, but at 8 in Gratiot, not 9 in Gratiot. And then also the burden of moving anything in the middle, talking to the median again, would be bundled into this millage that they are going to propose, and would not be on the cities to do so. I just mainly wanted to bring up some of those points because I know those are very important. If I was considering it, voting for it in November, that I would just want to know some additional details will, be coming forward until November. But Mr. Duchesne, if you had any other points that you think would be good to bring up now, I think would be good, but just wanted to clear some of that up.
I'll be happy to comment on a couple of, maybe not the specific points, but the interesting process that's taking place. And a number, if not all of these things have been said. And I think that one of my concerns from the city of Eastpointe's point of view is that we have some final plan and accurate information as far as tentative go-aheads to propose to people for them to understand, because we, and Mr. Councilman DeMonico and previously Mayor Pixley have indicated a number of committee work and design issues that have taken this quite broadly across all the gamut that we just discussed. For instance, the locations. At one dynamic, they talked about they discussed and put into outline a 9-mile in Gratiot, which didn't make a lot of sense to us. But also, as mentioned, that 8-mile, including our own transit design, was shown to the committee, and they acknowledged it, as we just spoke a little bit about, that it would be a better place if there was going to be a large transit center or stop at 8-mile and Gratiot, including our charrette people. The location, and recently having met with Michael Ford, he did not seem convinced that he was locked into one place or another, whether he asked, well, would it be better on the curb or in the center median? And obviously, it depends on what their design intends to do and their costs are. So I think that everybody here in the council have been very willing to listen, and we've had one presentation, and I didn't think they were ready for another presentation yet, and they do indicate they're going to have some public meetings and more information then. But one of the key elements that has not yet been decided is the cost to residents and what that millage is going to look like and how. So there's a lot of things that we have been trying to get ahead of the curve on this with a lot of information and discussion. Unfortunately, they've had and I think we'd all agree, they've had less than a transparent process to this point, and that's been problematic because nobody really gets to hear these dynamics and nobody gets to participate yet. And please, somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but I think they have a participation plan for April, basically with some public hearings to present these things out. So they're not really ready to present these entirely, and I think that's going to be key as we go forward. So we've had the executive director and Sarah Bunkowski out a couple of months ago or in the fall. It sounds like they're still making some of those determinations, and I think these are all elements that have been talked about, but to find out what the final pieces and how they come together are is really up to RTA, and to bring that back so we can honestly judge and discuss this. They have been invited to come to our planning commission, and I believe they said they weren't ready to do that. I do still believe that's a good, intelligent place for them to go, because the impact on land use is obviously significant, and that's, I think, a key area for them to visit and talk about, and we'll have to adjust our plans accordingly. So that's just a couple of overview comments, I think. As we
I would have to say that at the last meeting, when they were discussing the location of the buses in the median, they've discussed this from the very beginning. It's either going to be on the lateral side or down the middle. It depends on Detroit for the most part. It also depends on safety. The last time they did discuss on the lateral side of the median, but you would still have to eliminate what we consider the median right now, because they have to establish bus stations, and they also have to establish the way that they're going to maintain it during snow. So that becomes a real problem, because you have buses going frequently, and then you also have to do it, which is essentially what we're doing now. The other thing that had never been discussed before is streetlights. And I don't think they still comprehend the amount of maintenance utility lines that are below the surface. So the next meeting should be very interesting. It's in April, I think the first week, and then they'll have a public meeting after that.
Yeah, I have the two meetings that folks in Macomb County would be interested in. They're doing one March 29th, 4 to 7 p.m. It says they don't have a location yet, but it'll be somewhere in Detroit, so keep that free. Or March 30th, 4 to 7 p.m. at the Collaborative, it's called, in downtown Mount Clemens. That one will focus only on Gratiot. Otherwise, if you go to the one the day before in Detroit, that'll focus on all of the parts of the RTA.
And at the last meeting, they said the collegial, or the meeting on the 30th at 4 p.m. is at the collegial, which is in downtown Mount Clemens across from the court. And at that one, they're hoping to set up bus stops, that they would like to set up bus stations that they would be setting up along the Gratiot Trail. All right, anything else for the city manager? All right, let's move on to the Finance Director, Mr. Blum.
Yes, Madam Mayor and Council, I have nothing to report this evening.
Any questions for him?
I'd like to just thank you for the bar chart you gave us since this last meeting, and Mr. Creech, I would be glad to talk to you about it afterwards. I think if anyone else is interested in the question that Mr. Creech brought up about where the funding for SMORSA goes, how much we spend on public safety, and how it compares to like the overall budget, feel free to reach out to me, but, and I can share this bar chart that very precisely, and it doesn't take too long then to understand once you know what the bar chart represents, where the dollars go. I think it's a really good chart. I appreciate you sending us that.
Got two questions actually on a couple of the checks in here. It's on animal impounds for January. We're paying two different facilities that I think are the same facility. One says Eastpointe Animal Hospital, one says East Detroit Animal Hospital.
They are two separate entities.
Two different entities
Yes,
for
and
the same period of time?
Correct.
One is a little bit different time.
Yeah, it's two different locations. It just depends on when they're picking up the animals and what room is available at each veterinarian clinic.
Both of them say animal impounds.
Right, and we have contracts with both of the veterinarian offices.
Okay.
Actually, when we brought those contracts up, I had deja vu and thought we
Right.
were looking at the same thing
Very,
too.
very similar names, but they are separate.
Okay. And I got one other question. It looks as though we had an addition to the camera system at the police department. Did they find out that there was a big blackout area that we had to add a couple cameras, or what happened over there?
There were a couple of areas in the cell block area that we needed better coverage for, and we decided to add the two cameras for that purpose. One of them was a juvenile holding room that wasn't completely covered.
Okay.
Anything else? Let's move on to Mr. Albright.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of council. I only had one item for this evening. Ms. Van Haren yesterday provided me with an update regarding a show cause hearing property that was before the council back on February 9th. At the end of that hearing back on February 9th, the council ordered the property owner to provide a work schedule. He provided that work schedule yesterday to Ms. Van Haren. She believes that the time frame to complete all the repairs is approximately 5 to 6 months. And so city administration is looking for guidance. Does the council wish to schedule us for another show cause hearing regarding the proper amount of time to allow for the repairs? Or is the 5 to 6 months something that would be acceptable to the council, and the matter would just be tabled until approximately 5 to 6 months from now? And if he hasn't completed the work, then city administration would request that the matter be scheduled for a show cause hearing.
I'm sorry, which property did you say it was for?
It is 14766 Agnes.
Did we have a rough time frame we talked about at that meeting?
No.
No,
I think so.
no, he was a new owner, and at the time, he didn't know how long it was going to take, and so he just submitted his time frame yesterday. And looking at it, Ms. Van Haren believes that the time to complete all of the renovations and repairs is approximately 5 to 6 months.
So he said it would take that long, or she thinks it would take that long?
Ms. Van Haren believes it'll take that long, based on what he submitted.
I would be inclined to support her in the, looking at the fact that the person did come back and did submit a plan of action, and she can follow up on it. And if it doesn't look like he's accomplishing something, then she can always bring it back.
Okay.
I don't know if council agrees.
I agree.
I agree.
All right, I'll contact Ms. Van Haren tomorrow and let her know then.
Do you have anything else?
That was my only item for this evening, Madam Mayor.
You don't have a list of how,
No list this evening for scheduled show cause hearings, no,
wow.
I'm sorry.
We're
Don't
really-
jinx it.
We're really moving.
I can certainly talk to Ms. Van Haren about that and have something for next meeting.
Anybody else
find a
have any
couple.
questions for? Let's move on to new business. Item A is the approval of the tattooist license for Jessica Jebwab. We have a motion?
Madam Mayor, I'll motion to approve a tattoo license for Miss Jessica Jebwab for employment at Eternal Tattoos, 24834 Gracia Avenue, in accordance with Chapter 12, Article 7, of the City of Eastpointe codified ordinances.
Support?
Move support.
I just had one quick thing, not specific to this tattoo license, but just in general. I think something that council should consider after, after I was looking at this, there's some cities that don't require this extra oversight on tattooists and tattoo parlors. I was just interested if it was something that we could consider to, there's no reason, the state doesn't require us to do this sort of thing. It's just an additional fee then on a business, and the fee just essentially offsets the time we put in to do the background check and all that. There's probably other types of businesses too that we could maybe at least consider, but maybe when we consider the fee schedule and that kind of thing, we could look at this one. It didn't seem like there was a real reason I could think of that we need to do this. They have to get certified through a state board medically, so just something to consider. We don't have to at the moment, but just something to think about.
Okay. All right, we have a motion.
Yes, we do.
Please call the roll.
Councilperson Kleinfeld?
Yes.
Councilperson Lucido?
Yes.
Councilperson Marion?
Yes.
Mayor Pixley?
Yes.
Councilperson DeMonico?
Yes.
Item B is the approval of the special event application for Cruise and Gratiot for 2016. Can we have a motion?
Madam Mayor, I'll motion to approve the request from Eastpointe Gratiot Cruise, Inc. to conduct its 18th annual Classic Car Cruise on Saturday, June 18th, 2016, from 9:30 a.m. to 8 p.m., and designate the inside lane on both northbound and southbound Gratiot Avenue for cruise participants only from Chesterfield to Springer, subject to the following conditions. First, the organization must cooperate with the city clerk's office to ensure that all vendors are properly and quickly licensed. Second, the organization must provide general liability and liquor liability insurance certificates naming the City of Eastpointe as an additional insured and execute hold harmless agreement with the city. And third, the organization must comply with all fire codes.
Support?
Move support. And council, if you're looking for the hold harmless agreement or the insurance documentation, we're currently insured, the cruise is currently insured, and that expires May 31st. And we are in the process of getting new insurance. And I've checked with Mr. Blum, our insurance expert, to see if there's any changes that the cruise needs, and he said last year's were fine. So we'll have that in place before June 1st.
Just had a minor question for the dates. Do we need to, so essentially has the dates for all week. Aren't we essentially just doing, at least for this application, just a special event for just the Saturday? Or why do we have, I know there's other events throughout the week, but I think if I recall last year, Cloverleaf, I believe, came and did a special event application also for their separate one.
They had
I don't think we did
they
that.
have an additional item over and above. They have one separately on Saturday. The
Okay.
cruise does not go to Cloverleaf on Saturday.
Right, it was a different day during the week. I'm saying it was a separate, like, special event application. This one says, 4 to 9, or 4 p.m. Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. Saturday. I mean, is this event application covering all week or just the Saturday?
It's covering
guess
all
it's-
week for those periods of times.
Okay, so then we'll have additional, police throughout the week too then, and this is meant to cover
As
all of
needed.
that. Okay. All right, that's all.
Please call the roll.
Councilperson Kleinfeld?
Yes.
Councilperson Lucido?
Yes.
Mayor Pixley?
Yes.
Councilperson DeMonico?
Yes.
Councilperson Marion?
Yes.
Item 8 is payroll and bills. Do we have a motion?
Madam Mayor, I'll motion to approve payment of the bills in the amount of $1,846,165.27.
Support?
Move and support. Any additional questions? Please call the roll.
Councilperson Kleinfeld?
Yes.
Councilperson Lucido?
Yes.
Councilperson DeMonico?
Yes.
Councilperson Marion?
Yes.
Mayor Pixley?
Yes. With that, we'll move to the second hearing of the public. Does anyone wish to be heard at this time? Mr. Curley.
Harvey Curley, Eastpointe. I Just want to make a few comments on the Rapid Transit Authority. Steve, you're absolutely right. They have not been transparent. And I think, my own opinion, everybody, these are my opinions, I think they're not transparent because that's on purpose. There's a lot of questions that haven't been brought out, a lot of answers. It doesn't matter where that's going to be. It's going to be, if you're going to run our beautiful median and put a bus route down there, or if you're going to put it on the outside and take away our businesses' parking, that's going to be a catastrophe. We don't know how much millage it's going to be because they're still trying to figure out the cost. How many years is that millage going to be? You know, we just had our beautiful citizens of this great city approve 14 mills, and they were very supportive of that. Now we're going to have another millage on the ballot that is not going to directly affect positively the citizens of this city. So there is quite a few of us that are pretty upset about this, and we are in the process of forming a committee. I won't give you my phone number, but it's Harvey Curley. You can look in the phone book and get my number, and we're going to form a committee as large as we can get. And then when we do that, we're going to move into Roseville, and we're going to get as many citizens from there, and then we're going to go to Detroit, then we're going to go Clinton Township, and then we're going to Mount Clemens. And we're going to be transparent, unlike the RTA has been. And one other question, these 2 dates that you brought up about the meeting, is there going to be an opportunity for a hearing of the public? Does anybody know that? Yeah, you know, I know you're not supposed to answer me at the hearing of the public, but that's the question. And if it's not, shame on them. That's even further proof that they're not being honest and not being transparent to the people. So count me as one person, and maybe somebody's going to come up yet tonight. Count me as one person that's going to fight like hell to make sure this doesn't pass in November.
Thank you, Mr. Curley. Mrs. Peak?
Good evening, Madam Mayor and Council. Shirley Peak of Eastpointe. I'm also not in favor of this at all, for a lot of the same reasons that Harvey Curley mentioned. It's going to be put to a vote for us. Do I understand this correctly, that say some of the cities vote for it, say we don't vote for it? Is the majority still going to win where we will have to go along with this even if most people in our city do not want it? And I don't think that's fair. They shouldn't even ask us to vote under those circumstances. But I am not in favor of changing this city around and all the destruction that would happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Peak. Does anyone else? Mr. Creech?
Harvey Creech, resident of Eastpointe. Thank you, Harvey. Thank you, Shirley. That's exactly. On the RTA, as far as transparency, I mean, I've asked, and Mr. Hardy, I'm glad you brought this to the attention. You tried to say there's going to be a 25-minute save time from there to here. One quick question. How many people are going to utilize that 25 minutes from this area? You said there's 125 stops. At 125 stops, how many are in Eastpointe that they're going to miss and stop the same difference? We have buses right now that stop at these stops. A person can get off and use our business. In this RTA, they're not going to use our business. They're going to fly through this city like it wasn't even here. They're going to make it look like an airport, and this is going to be the runway. They're going to take off. And as far as parking, I was the mayor too. Where are they going to park? 8 Mile Road? Take up if they stop at 9 Mile Road, they're going to use the post office in behind there and the rest of the stuff, take up that parking. And I guess, as I said before too, we have a bus service. Why don't we make it better? I've lived in this city all my life. We never used to have a bus service, period. Now we've got one and they say it's not working. It took us long enough just to get one. What's wrong with that? Improve what we have. And the bottom line, you're just the gentleman. You come up with just, Steve, you hit it right on the nose. I've asked 2 questions. First of all, like these people, design and cost. That's all we want to know. Design, you're going to tear the city up no matter how you do it. If you put it on this side, it's tore up. If you put it in the median, it's tore up. And the cost, we don't need millage. That's the last thing this city needs right now. And quick, Cardi, I love it. You're talking about this graph. This graph, I guess this shows we spent about 7-point-some million dollars out of 24, I'm just saying there's a graph here, there's no line, about $24 million. And it says, according to revenue, our expenditures are a whole lot more. We've got 2 millages now, 14 mills or better. I want to know exactly what does that constitute and how much are we totally paying? I mean, you've got, you know what I'm saying, and here we've got shared revenues. Is this shared revenues coming back to this too? We're already in the hole and we just got started. We've got 2 millages now and our revenues aren't even close to being what we need for health and safety. So what you did in reality when you told the people, we didn't bamboozle them, we didn't do nothing, we didn't even break even with the last millage we had.
30 seconds.
We're already in the hole. It's a heck of a thing to say, people, but you're already in the hole. When even with these 2 mills right now, when you look at this, compared to public safety and revenue. Think about that. Think about all the rest of this millage and think about all the things of us spending money that we couldn't afford in the first place. But we've done
Time
it.
is up.
Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else wish to be heard? Mrs. Young.
Darlene Sue Young. Nobody knows my Darlene name, but that's me. Anyhow, I'd like to invite everyone. We do have I'm also president of the 8 Mile Kelly Homeowners Association, and we meet on the 3rd Wednesday of every month at Pleasant View School at 7 o'clock. And our speaker this month will be tomorrow, and Mary Van Haren will be our speaker. Our meeting is tomorrow, but we'll have Mary for our speaker. So we've been around since 1956. And we like to handle issues like this. Sometimes our homeowners group gets together and we can settle some issues. So hopefully we can all work together on this. And I just want to invite everybody tomorrow, 7 o'clock, Pleasant View School, 8 Mile Kelly Homeowners. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else wish to be heard? Anyone else? Seeing none, we'll move to the mayor and council reports, and let's start with Mr. DeMonico.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. First, Mr. Creech, I'd like to address the items you brought up about public safety. Your concern, I know, is that we just did this millage, and you want to make sure that this money is spent on public safety. Well, doing this millage actually ensures that our city spends more. It requires us to spend more than we previously did on public safety because that 14 mills and then the 7 mills we had before, all 21 of those mills have to be spent on public safety. Before that millage, technically, we were only required, we had to spend 7. So I think it is definitely, that point is hitting your concern, which is completely legitimate concern, because I know this general fund term to some people just means you just spend the money wherever, but that is not true. That is just the money that is not allocated to something else that is required to be allocated that purpose. It's not very easy to explain very quickly, but that graph shows you that we have 21 mills designated specifically for public safety, and we spend at least that 21 mills on public safety. We still need a little more. I'm not sure where you were going with the we're already in the hole, because that graph shows that we've had more revenue than expenses. Maybe we can just talk about it briefly afterwards, but we are required now to spend more on public safety, and we are making that investment in public safety. Like I said, just not easy to explain very quickly, but that's what that shows. So then the RTA. Thank you for everyone bringing that up at the hearing of the public. I'm hoping the Regional Transit Authority and anyone else working with them can answer these questions. I hope any questions that anyone has is brought forward, because of course, we're all concerned, right, that the vote is supposed to be in November. We want everything answered before the vote, right? We don't have all the answers right now, but if you bring them up, we can get them answered and we can work on that. And you know, right now, if the vote was today, I don't know how I'm voting. I want to find out all this information, of course, too, and then vote yes or no. I'd like to see a public safety, or not public safety, sorry, public transportation solution, like you were saying, Mr. Creech, that why don't we just utilize the buses we have better? Hopefully that can be addressed, and we work with SMART and DDOT to have a better solution. So thank you, everyone, for bringing that up. I look forward to continuing that discussion. Of course, make it out to those March 29th and 30th events and ask your questions there. I think to address the concern, they say that they are going to be a open house format, so you'll be able to ask your questions there. They are trying to be transparent and allow you to ask questions. I believe they are trying to be transparent. I don't think they are on purpose not trying to be transparent. I think that would only hurt their cause and not get it passed in November. So, sorry for this being slightly lengthy here, but the condolences to a couple weeks ago, Joyce Vincent, one of our long-time employees, her husband had passed away. So condolences to Joyce Vincent. And then everyone, we had good turnout in the presidential primary, more than we've had recently, 33.3% turnout. So come out and vote. It's, you know, the last couple elections, I think the turnout's not been as high as it should be. Please exercise that right to vote. And upcoming events tomorrow, Taste Fest, 5:30 at Athena Hall. And everyone have a happy Easter. That was all, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Mr. Marion?
A couple things. This past Saturday, I attended the Puts on the Ritz. I don't know if anybody missed that, but that was a great show. Great opportunity for a lot of the talent in the city to show. And I just thought it was a great activity to bring a lot of the community together. And I think we are already looking forward to next year's. I think that's something that they'll be able to build on and continue this. I'd like to make sure everybody supports a Memorial Day parade coming up. There's some fundraisers going on right now, one tonight over at Cloverleaf, as a matter of fact. The Knights of Columbus are selling tickets. They're selling a raffle ticket for 2 Tigers season tickets. It's a pretty good deal. Pretty good odds. Tickets are $20, but it's going to help cover the cost of putting on the Memorial Day Parade. They funded it last time and really didn't get enough credit for what they put forth and how much money they spent on doing that. And that's the Leo the 13th Knights of Columbus. Also, this coming up, the My Dog Park on April 2nd, we're going to have a spring cleanup at the park from 12 to 1. We're going to have a couple ideas going and a couple free surprises for the dogs. So everybody that's a Key Fob member or wants to be a Key Fob member, come on up to the dog park, April 2nd. Saturday, it's at noon.
That's all?
That's it.
All right. Mrs. Leo?
I just have a couple of things. The library has extended the little library submissions. If anyone is still interested in building a little library, you can go on the library website and get the information. They're extending it to April 8th. And also, the library will be taking collections April 6th to the 20th for their attic treasure sale. So if you have any things that you would like to donate, once again, it's April 6th to April 20th. And that's it.
Thank you. Mr. Kleinfeld?
Just wanted to say I was at the Putting on the Ritz as well on Saturday. Unfortunately, I had to leave a little bit early, but I used to go every year. I don't know how long it's been. I don't remember since.
4 years since.
4 years since. So hopefully that becomes an annual thing and everyone can, enjoy going to that every year again. I'm going to mention one event that's actually in St. Clair Shores, but I think it's a good event. There's a Dodgeball event on Monday put on by the Youth Council for Diversity and Inclusion at Lakeshore High School. I thought I'd mention it because I thought it was yesterday, and I thought it was late, but I was a week early. So it's a pretty inexpensive fundraiser. They just suggest $2 at the door. So if you feel like showing up to something like that to watch some dodgeball, you're welcome to come. And everyone have a safe and happy St. Patrick's Day and happy Easter.
So, and the dodgeballs are small, as your mother described them, very small, colorful air balls.
It's a wide array. So I think they do have some regular dodgeballs.
Okay. All right, I want to thank everybody that came out to the Ritz on Saturday. It was a really good time. It was a lot of fun. We had a lot of diversity present within the cast themselves, and it was a lot of fun. We raised a little bit of money, not a lot, but enough that we can go ahead and start it the following year. Last night was the fundraiser for the Memorial Day Parade. It will cost us about $8,000, and by the time we sell all the raffle tickets for the 2 season tickets for Detroit Tigers, we probably have all but $1,000 to raise. But the best part about this Memorial Day Parade is the community involvement. The Knights of Columbus have started it. We're working with the city. We have a school representative, and we also have a number of the veterans groups, as well as the military museum. So there's a group of about 15 different entities, service and fraternal organizations that are going to be doing it. What we hope to do is to have the parade start here at the City Hall and wind over to Kennedy Park, and then to have a small community picnic over there at the end of the parade. So high school bands have already committed to being part of it, and we're getting pretty excited, and it's so nice to see so many people working together with this. Tomorrow night is the Chambers Taste Fest, and that's a great event, and it's held up at the Athena. It's free to get in, but you have to buy a ticket, costs $1 a ticket to participate. Many of our local Eastpointe residents are participating. We have 17 different restaurants that are providing samples of their food. And then on Saturday, we have something unusual. We have a wild game dinner. The Breath of Life Church that's up there on 8 Mile Road has a wild game dinner from 5 to 8 p.m. And they promise venison, kangaroo, what is it, John? Venison, kangaroo, wild boar, rattlesnake, and they stopped at alligator. I didn't hear the word alligator, but it should be fun. A 50-50 raffle, and then they're also have a cake auction, and they're doing this to send kids to camp in the summer months. So promises to be a good thing. City of Eastpointe has so many things going on, it seems, all the time. It's a busy, busy little city. So I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Support.
Please call the roll.
Councilperson DeMonico?
Yes.
Councilperson Kleinfeld? Councilperson Lucido?
Yes.
Councilperson Marion?
Yes.
Mayor Pixley?
Yes. Meeting's adjourned at 8:05.